Thank you, Dr. Amachi, for inviting me with this very important symposium. I bring greetings from Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences. I have nothing to disclose. I'll just cover initially the new concepts in variceal bleeds. This is a well-known figure where if the portal pressure goes above 10, it is clinically significant portal hypertension, which could lead to variceal bleed, gastropathy, and many other complications, including ascites. At ILBS, we do close to about 2,000 HVPGs per year, and our aim is to direct the management of patients with portal hypertension through reduction, justified, monitored for preventing complications. Patients of acute variceal bleed, I am showing you an old slide. Over the years, we were seeing close to 800 plus acute variceal bleed, and with great efforts, mortality has decreased slightly. This is our current management protocol. Patients who come with variceal bleed, we have a door to needle time, means patient has come to the ER room, the vasoactives are started within 30 minutes. I'll show you that bolus versus infusion. Infusion of Turley is better. We have a door to endoscopy time of less than 6 hours. If the patient is successfully controlled, ligation is continued along with drugs and then secondary prophylaxis. However, if the patient is sick, we stratify according to a basal bleeding risk score and then into child's A, B, and C. And if he continues to bleed, we have few options, and this could be 15 to 20% of our patients who fail or rebleed. This is to show you one of our earlier studies where a continuous infusion of terlipressin is superior as far as response to 12-hour or 24-hour. This is continuous infusion versus bolus, where HUPG response is achieved in higher number of patients. And the mean dose of terlipressin is lower compared to when you give boluses. So have fewer adverse events. So now we routinely use a continuous infusion of terli. If your patient is sick, let's say his MELD is 23, like this patient who got a routine EVL band ligation. After 12 days, he came with bleed and then he was glued, but he continued to bleed. And this was after the glue within 4 hours time. And I'm not showing you this video, but just to show you that these patients can be placed a Danicella stent as shown in the side, and this can help. And then subsequently, once the patient has stabilized, you can remove the stent in these patients. And this is an immediate solution, like it is compressing the area rather than decompressing the area. When a patient comes, what are our challenges? First, if it is a massive bleed, it could lead to ischemic hepatitis. Now, if it is an ischemic hepatitis, which can develop in a proportion of patients, then mortality is high. If there is no ischemic hepatitis, there is a benefit. And NAC can ameliorate, and acetylcysteine can ameliorate. So this is part of our acute variceal bleed management protocol. Early tips has been shown to be effective in secondary prophylaxis, and large number of studies, including by Joan Carlos and the group in NEJM. So an early tips favors prevention of rebleed. This is what we showed, that when you have an early tips and you compare it with Danicella stent, which one is better in a patient who has a refractory variceal bleed? And this shows you, if you place SEMS, as I showed you earlier, or you place TIPS, the outcome with TIPS is significantly superior than placing a SEMS in this. And this prevents very early rebleed and early rebleed significantly. Hence, we recommend early TIPS. The next issue comes of early primary or primary prophylaxis of variceal bleeds, and beyond beta blockers. Now, this algorithm shows you if you have a patient with high risk varices, large with red color sign or small with red color signs, you will assess by HVPG a hemodynamic response by reduction of 10%, 20% or more in the HVPG. If he is a responder, continue. If he is a non-responder, you may choose depending on patient's preferences on beta blockers or band ligation. But here is the important part. If the patient has small varices which are not high risk or has no varices, should we treat? Should we treat all cirrhotics? Well, I'll show you some data. Now, the same way, if you see hemodynamic response, if these are responders, continue. Non-responders, consider starting additional beta blockers. So this study, where we took up patients who had small varices, can beta blockers, and we gave carvedilol, and we just could reduce 8% portal pressure, not 20%. Normally, for prevention, primary prevention, 10% is good enough, but we achieved 8% with the best available drug. Even that was helpful in preventing, delaying enlargement of varices. This study, very well known to you, Bradisky study, where small varices with clinically significant portal hypertension in cirrhotics were taken. It could prevent significantly. You see the ratio 0.51 is the HR. So those who received beta blockers did better as far as prevention of first decompensation or death. This is an important slide to show you that secondary outcome like ascites can also be prevented besides decompensation and death. So there is a need for us to reduce pressure when you have clinically significant portal hypertension. I'll show you some more data. This is related to early tips. Now, normally we are doing tips for refractory ascites, but here I'm showing you data in the management of recurrent ascites. Now, here those patients who in the last 3 months required more than 2 LVPs. You don't wait 12 months. In these patients, when they were randomized, early tips compared to LVP gave a significant survival advantage and also prevention of early refilling. I'll now go on to some other important areas which are new horizons, target heart rate concept. Let's say you have a patient who has got, you have given beta blockers and it doesn't work. The heart rate doesn't come down because his systemic blood pressure diastolic comes down. So what is the role of ivabradine? So if you can reduce target heart rate, can it improve the outcome in cirrhotic portal hypertension? What is ivabradine? It's a drug which reduces the slope of diastolic depolarization, prolongs diastolic duration. And therefore, to prolong this is a funny channel blocker, and you can, without any change in blood pressure, without any reduction in blood pressure, you can decrease heart rate. So in this trial, what we did was we compared, everybody received carvedilol. After carvedilol, those who had a reduction versus they did not have reduction, then we gave ivabradine. Now here is standard therapy, Here is those who received carvedilol, but a fair proportion could not tolerate carvedilol. In them, we gave carvedilol plus ivabradine. And here you can see, if you can achieve the target heart rate, there is a huge advantage. So ultimately, whether you achieve it with carvedilol or beta blockers or with a combination, reduction in the cardiac work is important. There are several new other concepts. I want you to think about gut. It has been shown now that it is in your Peyer's patches that your pump works to give which way the blood will go. We will come to it in a minute. There are several areas in the liver. You have activated stellate cells, Kupffer cells, sinusoidal endothelial cells, which are defenestrized, which are now thickened. Can we modulate them? And I'll show you some drugs. I've already discussed with you some areas of variceal bleeding. There are many intrahepatic targets, but we are not there. What happens in the liver? You have a dysfunctional, deranged, damaged hepatocyte. You have an ongoing necroinflammation. You have a sinusoidal cell which has been damaged, an activated hepatocyte, and then there are lots of macrophages coming, Kupffer cells are active. All this leads to laying down of collagen in the space of disc. We need to remodel it. We need to remove this, but we are not there. At least some part, I'll show you how it can work. There are large number of therapies. I'm just showing you this slide. Statins work, reduce pressure, whether in every patient or not. We haven't found it in small varices, but maybe it reduces mortality. The RAS system antagonist, galectin 3 inhibitors to some extent, not much. FXR agonist in a small abstract, rho kinase inhibitors, multi-kinase inhibitors, probiotics, essential amino acids. Each one has some advantage, but they are not there to be routinely used except statins as of now. You have many other drugs who can reduce portal pressure, PDE5 inhibitors, antioxidants. Every one of us would like to have them without having portal hypertension. Well, endothelial receptor antagonists, these are there, but they're not very safe for some of the liver patients. So we have therapies, I've given you a table, but they are not very effective. We have several therapies where regression of liver disease can be done, but portal pressure reduction has not been shown. Like anticoagulant, enoxaparin, a famous study in hepatology, liraglutide, and many others. Now, very recently, lenifibranor, they all have been used to reduce NASH-related fibrosis, but whether they will help us in reduction of portal pressure is a long way to go. This slide is my favorite, and I use it routinely. Metformin for NASH cirrhosis patients. This study, unfortunately, is still not published in the best form, shows you standard medical therapy versus metformin. And if you give metformin, more than or equal to 10% reduction is seen in about 60% of the patients compared to standard therapy. So which drug to be given a diabetic with cirrhosis? My choice would be metformin. Now we are moving into an entirely new area. We were working on vessels. Can we work on lymphatics? Now you will see that when there is a resistance to flow of blood to the liver, not only the portal pressure increases, there is an increased resistance to flow of lymphatics. And these lymphatics will go and they'll get into your cisterna carni, and this whole lymphatic system is also involved. There is a rapid increase in the number of lymphatic vessels, and there is a leakage. There is a lymphangiectasia seen. So our hypothesis is that if you can increase more lymphatic flow into the bowel and through that into the cisterna carni, you may have a management which can help into the reduction in varices and reduction in ascites. This was shown by a very novel technique. Now all drugs go into the liver, but your liver is cirrhotic. So can you bypass the liver and from the intestine directly go into the mesentery? So we used a VEGF-C, and this was put onto a nano delivery system. Once we put it onto the nano delivery system, you can see that the portal pressures came down, portal blood flow was reduced, and intrahepatic vascular resistance in these patients was not affected. Here you can see in the CT, which is done in the animals, that there is a reduction in the ascites compared to the ascites seen in controls. There is a huge reduction, and the VEGF was seen in the lymphatic vessels. So our concept is that VEGFC can induce gut lymphangiogenesis and it improves lymphatic drainage in these animals. As of now, we haven't done any human studies, waiting for the ethics to clear. But to give you an idea that one model of new therapies could be lymphatic drugs. There is another important area of S1 phosphate, sphingosine 1 phosphate. If S1P is lost, then you have a severe intrapulmonary shunting and hepatopulmonary syndrome can develop. Now, this has been shown earlier that S1P maintains the vascular tone. However, this also, once it is in high levels, it can produce signaling, can produce a hypertension, intrapulmonary intravascular hypotension, and therefore we have to work upon drugs which can down regulate. So our goal was to investigate the role of S1P in severity of hepatopulmonary syndrome and associated systemic inflammation. We took patients with HPS, without HPS, and controls. Low level of S1P phosphate predicted severe shunting. A 16.1, the level is lower. It suggests that these patients cannot vasodilate. We found that patients compared to cirrhotics, those who had HPS had a markedly reduced level of S1P. So our key message in this was depletion of S1P levels in cirrhosis can predict an early intrahepatic shunting, and an S1P agonist, that is FTY720 fingolimod, can be helpful. It is available for treating multiple sclerosis, can be a drug which can be used for reducing intrapulmonary shunting in HPS. Another new approach is using fenretinide. This is an orphan nuclear receptor modulator. Now, in the stages of early stress or immediate stress, you have a regulation by TGF beta, and fasting induced hepatic FGF21 expression markedly increases. Now, this is a nuclear receptor. You can see that compared to healthy, a lot of this is coming out from the nucleus outside. In the healthy, 90% is inside, 10% is outside. In cirrhotics, 10% is inside and 90% is outside. So we wanted to see the role of fenretinide, an orphan nuclear receptor agonist in experimental CCL4 cirrhotic portal hypertension. What it did was, when we used an experimental model over a period of time, that the mean arterial pressure was not changed, heart rate was not changed, but portal pressure came down, vascular resistance, portal blood flow, and superior mesenteric artery blood flow, they all decreased. So we found that portal pressure could be reduced by about 38%, vascular resistance decreased, and reduction in portal blood flow occurred. There was no change in mean arterial pressure. So what this drug has finally done to us, I'll not go into details in the interest of time, that by giving fenretinide, we are able to have more NR4A1 into cytoplasm, and also it decreases fibrosis and portal hypertension. With this, I would like to conclude that I have tried to show you new concepts in the management of acute variceal bleed, the door to needle, door to scope time, the use of continuous terlipressin infusion. Also showed you that how to manage a refractory variceal bleed by possibly doing early tips. To prevent ischemic hepatitis, NAC can be helpful. And secondary prophylaxis, we can certainly use drugs as well as tips. For early primary or primary, We should try beta blockers, certainly. If it doesn't, then you can have Evabred. A reduction in portal pressure certainly will improve outcomes, including decompensation and death. We have heard just before me that there are better methods, non-invasive methods for measuring the portal pressure reduction. Hepatic lymphatics and managing them could be new approaches, and new drug therapies for HPS needed and possibly are in the offing. But we have miles to go, and I do hope Baveno 7 will bring up the portal hypertension field one more time to the top of attention of hepatologists. Thank you for your